It's a good afternoon to you. Thank you so much to my colleague Nzinga Grunda then for holding down the fort here on point. Let's get into market sense now. Where exactly have the markets gone this afternoon? It gets a very interesting picture. Precarious indeed when it comes to the stimulus talk out in the United States. Still no resolution there. Also, still no resolution when it comes to the Brexit talks. The European Union and UK not necessarily agreeing. By Sunday we'll perhaps know exactly what the future of the talks are going to be out on that front. So hopefully that gives a sense to the market that there will be some sort of finality to the news that has certainly come out. So the market picture, well, today down 0.5% is the JSE All Share. Unfortunately, negativity then filtering through into this market picture, and it begins to hurt us just a little bit more. We're sitting just below that 59,000 point mark then in this afternoon trading picture. It was a mixed market movement then out in the Asian region then, with the Shanghai Composite in China going down 0.75%. Positivity though for the Hang Seng, that managed to tick up around 0.33% as well this morning. Out in the markets yesterday, the United States, those going down from record lows, record highs should I say as well. Big question marks. Airbnb then, of course, getting some good news there. That company now valued at $100 billion. Its first trading day in the United States yesterday ensured that went quite high as well then. So it does mark the biggest IPO of 2020, closing off a year, of course, that has been turbulent, but investors have shifted their attention then to the tech stocks, and Airbnb kind of caps that off in a really great way as well. Onto the commodities picture very quickly as well, down for most of them as well. Platinum going down, the gold price also getting a bit of a hit. The Brent crude price though now sitting at $50 odd against, or rather for a barrel. It's around down 0.5% or there or thereabouts at this point in time. So you can just imagine it has gone up quite prodigiously of late. Yes, there's been excess crude out in the United States, but a few more question marks around the vaccines has certainly built up and said that, well, demand may begin to pick up again once those vaccines really get going across the rest of the globe. Let's unpack all this information now and a little bit more as well. Then we have Warwick Lucas from Galileo Capital joining us then, as he usually does on a Friday. It's a good afternoon to you, Warwick. Thank you so much for the time. So, overall general picture, the vaccines just seem to be the big news items for the most part. Of course, there's still Brexit and there's US stimulus talks as well. Would you say then that the vaccine news is still the biggest talking point then for the market right now?
Anticipating vaccines coming along, and lots of hopes pegged into it. And then, of course, now there's going to be the nuts and bolts of actually implementing these things. I mean, the kind of capacity that's going to be needed to produce them is going to be substantial. Companies, I think, have been laying in new capacity, but certainly more capacity was needed. And for some of them, such as the kind of new generation vaccines that were developed by Moderna and by Pfizer, for example, having never been manufactured before, those would need new capacity, new types of plant put in. So the actual logistics of wrapping up trials of these and actually getting needles in arms is still quite a convoluted process, and will obviously take some getting together. But I think the fact that we've already seen some approvals, for example in the UK, they're in the middle of winter, which is obviously a key period with this kind of virus. So I think the Northern Hemisphere is just as all speed ahead as fast as they can to try and get some maximum impact while the season runs out. So yes, it's positive, but it's certainly execution is tricky.
Yeah, execution, you're quite right, is tricky, and it's still going to be long lasting, right? It's going to still take us some time to really get this right as well, and for the inoculations and the vaccines as well to spread across the globe really, with of course some conditions as well worse than others. So we'll certainly see how things fare there. No deal Brexit for the time being. Perhaps we get more word on what happens exactly on Sunday, but is a no-deal Brexit priced into the market at this time, or is the market really expecting there to be a deal very soon, even if it is before the end of 2020?
Yes and no, Arabella. I mean, we've seen lots of howling and screaming as Brexit deadlines come up and go past. It's a play that we've seen a number of times. Now, I mean, the UK has actually technically already been out of the EU for a year, but what did stay in place was an agreement to carry on as if they were still in the EU. And the EU has just put out another document extending certain issues such as deals with, for example, air transport and other forms of infrastructure, such as borders and so on, for another 6 months, and fisheries. And it's simply a case of, well, the can keeps on rolling. So, I mean, we may very well come to the 31st of December without a deal, but whether it will count as a hard Brexit or not remains to be seen. Usually there seems always in these affairs to be some kind of interim stopgap until the next time, of course.
Yeah, certainly until the next time. You're quite right there. All right, well, let's bring things locally then a little bit then. Warwick, we've got the situation then with the Delta Property Group. I mean, this kind of takes us back to Steinhoff, if you want to call it that. We've also had the likes of EOH suffer similar situations. Tongaat has been in a similar situation as well. It raises a few questions really around regulations perhaps as well, and just questions around whether the market begins to anticipate that anything like this bodes negatively then for the South African investor market. Do you think markets are perhaps looking at this saying, well, we kind of expect as much now? Is it beginning to be something they're getting used to?
I think the key moral of the story with this one, as it was with those others, is the question of, well, how much borrowings are they mixed in with the jiggery-pokery? And all of them, one of the key denominators was, were assets correctly valued? Now, I mean, yes, we saw some naughty transactions there. We're looking there at commissions that were inappropriately paid to the tune of 44 million rand. Fraud amounting to 2 million rand, but the main point there being that the valuation of properties will get written down by about 2 billion rand, which, when you're quite highly borrowed, is certainly a number. So their net asset value will have gone down from about 5 billion rand to 3 billion rand. That's quite a chunky drop. And of course, the other issue here is that this is a group with a lot of very short timeline lease expiries. Quite a lot of those lease expiries go to government. Government has tended to run on short lease periods for quite some time now, but they are starting to improve that, which is actually improving the rental that they get. But it's still an ongoing process with this particular group. So there's still a position where old management have packed their bags, and new management have to get a handle on what on earth the real picture looks like. So there's a lot of up in the air on this one. So yes, I guess there are investors that are burnt, and now a recovery process has to happen.
Yeah, we'll certainly see if that recovery process can actually happen as speedily as possible. Then it's the last thing sort of our market needs. Warwick, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for it. Warwick Lucas there from Galileo Capital, joining us on a Friday as usual to unpack this market picture. Thank you so much for joining us here on Market Sense. Then that does bring things to an end for me. My colleague Diabo Seto does join you after this with SME on Point, of course. Then we also have your books on point, as we usually do on a Friday with my colleague Nastasia Arensa. So all of that coming up before the top of the hour. From me, though, have a wonderful weekend. That's where the buck stops.